Good morning, my friends. Today we got a report of a leak coming through the ceiling in the garage from the second floor. So I'm going to show you how to locate the leak, how to repair the leak, and we're all going to do that the Walker's way. And there's our issue. So now we need to figure out where this is coming from. One thing to keep in mind is just because there's a stain on your ceiling doesn't mean the leak is right above that stain. Okay? The water is going to settle or come out at the point of least resistance. So in other words, there might be, maybe a seam here. The water is leaking from over there. It's traveling across the top of the drywall. It gets to that seam or the point of least resistance, and that's where it starts to settle. There might be a dip in the drywall right here, so while the water's kind of puddling on there, and then it's starting to seep through, and that's why we got the stain. But just don't assume because there's a stain here, the leak is right above it. It's possible, but not always. So we're going to cut this open, kind of make an exploratory access hole so I can get up in there and see if we can figure out where the leak is coming from. So you can use a jab saw and put it in there and cut it out. I prefer something a little bit more testosterone driven. So I'm going to use my a multifunction tool here. And especially when working overhead with drywall, always wear eye protection. And this is another one of those do as I say, not as I do kind of thing, because I don't have any with me. I just checked my truck. I didn't find one in there. Now, earlier I did forget to put the retaining bar on one of the shelves in there. So when I made a hard turn, everything from that shelf fell down. And so there's stuff all over the truck, and I can't find half the stuff right now. So there's probably one in there. I just can't see it. But I'll just have to be careful, and hopefully I don't get it all in my eyes. And first, I'm just going to cut out a small access hole just so I can see what's going on up there. I'll enlarge it later if need be, but I want to find out exactly where the leak's coming from first. So we'll get all the damaged drywall out of there and all the wet and moldy insulation. And if you look right up there, that is the drain to our shower, and it's leaking from around the flange where it meets the shower pan. There's the shower pan. Pull the drain grate out, and it's kind of hard to see on camera here. This is what's called a compression fitting. In other words, your pipe comes up through the flange, and then there's a rubber gasket that fits around it, like an O-ring over there, and then it's got a metal plate that goes on there, and when you tighten it down, it tightens it up, and it compresses that gasket so it squeezes out between the sides and creates a seal. The hardest part about getting these out sometimes is getting this ring out. Sometimes you can put a screwdriver on one of the tabs, tap it with a hammer, see if you can see it. We kind of tapped it, and it kind of came free. Not sure if you can see it on camera here. It turns, there you go, so you can see the ring turning. So we're just going to keep doing that until it comes out. There you go, there's your ring. Oops. So you can see how it's got the tabs at the top. There's some tools you can get that'll get in there and grab those tabs. Otherwise, like I said, just tap a screwdriver against them until it comes out. Now down in here, there is a rubber washer that goes around here. So we're going to go down below. We're going to remove the strap that's holding this pipe up. So we can drop the pipe down. You can see that strap right there. It's holding the pipe up. So we're going to take that strap off, and then we should hopefully be able to pull that straight down a little bit. So after I took the strap off, had a little bit of a problem. I couldn't get the pipe far enough down because this rafter right here was in the way. So I couldn't drop the pipe down to clear the drain assembly. So what I did is I just cut the pipe off past the P-trap right over here and just cut it all the way off, and then just took the whole unit right out. Now that we got the pipe out, we can pull out the compression washer, and this is what it looks like. All right, so I got two options we're doing today. The first one, we're going to do the easy one. We're just going to put a new compression gasket in the existing drain, and we're going to give that a try. If that doesn't work, then we're going to have to change out the whole drain assembly, which means in this case, because it's corroded on there, we're going to have to cut out the drain assembly. But I always like doing easy first, so let's try the easy way first. So we just have to put our drain back in. So this is what we cut out. So we're going to use the Fernco fitting, which I showed you, or this just slides over your your drain pipe will line up the pipe with the other pipe, and then this will slide over, cover the gap, and then we'll just tighten it down using the worm screws. This will stick up into the drain. We'll go up top. We'll fit the compression gasket over it, put the ring over that and tighten it down, and then we'll give it a try. If that doesn't work, then we got to replace the drain assembly. Okay, we're gonna have to go with option B. We're gonna have to replace a whole drain assembly. As I was putting the drain pipe up in there to do the compression gasket, I could feel around the flange where it comes through the shower pan, and it's definitely leaking between the flange and the shower pan, not just from the compression gasket. So we need to replace the whole drain assembly. So we're gonna go upstairs, we're gonna cut out the drain assembly, and I'll meet you up there and show you how that's done. And we're going to use a Dremel with a cutting wheel on it to do that. And we're going to cut through at 4 different locations through the flange, being careful not to cut into the pan. Once we got it cut through, just use a screwdriver and pry each piece out. Once we got all the pieces out, it's time to install the new drain. So you can see this is the contraption we're going to use. Now this is good for areas where we're at where we have very limited access to get to the ring to tighten it with a standard wrench. Okay, so I'm going to kind of show you how this works. Let's take it apart and I'll show you all the different parts to it. Okay. So here's the flange. This is what you drop down from the top from your shower pan, and this is what shows below. You got your rubber gasket. Now this rubber gasket goes underneath the pan. So the pan is here, and your rubber gasket goes underneath. It does not go between the flange and the pan. Okay. Then this is called a friction gasket. What that does is it protects the rubber gasket from movement when you're tightening it down. So it's a friction gasket. This one has a metal plate. This is the plate that I'll show you how this is. So you spin your ring on, and what I always do is I always back it off about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. And then when you tighten these screws down, if you can see in there, let me tighten a couple of them down to get a gap in there so you can see them. What it does is it pushes against this metal plate, and it forces the flange down against the shower pan. So it's like tightening this ring, but since we can't get in there, now we can put a screwdriver or a socket on here because we have our subfloor down here. So we can put that on there and then just tighten. And you want to tighten all the screws pretty much evenly. Okay, so this is the part that's inside the shower pan. This is your strainer. Okay. And before you saw me take this ring out, which is the compression ring to push down. So this is a tool that helps you get in there. What it does, you have those little divots in between there. That slips down there. Now you can put a screwdriver in there and you can turn it, and that turns the ring. So take that out for right now. This ring will come out. And you'll see, just like when it's got the rubber gasket in it. The rubber gasket goes down in there. This goes on top of it, and it pushes down that rubber gasket, so that rubber gasket constricts right around your pipe, and that's what creates your seal. So once you got your pipe up in here, slip the rubber gasket down over it, put it down inside, as far down as you can, and then you put the ring on, and then just make sure you don't cross thread it, because you want it to turn nice and easy when you get it in there. So it should just spin until you get it down there. Then you can put this in there and then use a screwdriver in there to turn it, or you can put some pliers on here and turn it until it tightens down, and it creates that seal. But before you put this in, around the flange here, you need to put some plumber's putty. So just get yourself some plumber's putty, roll it out, make yourself a rope out of it, and put it along all the way around on here. Now you can use silicone. You can put silicone on there, a nice thick bead of silicone, and put it in there. The only problem is you have to let the silicone dry before you can test it. So using the plumber's putty, you don't have to wait. You can test it as soon as you get it all together. So we're going to go ahead and get some plumber's putty around here. We'll drop this into there. We're going to put a nice heavy weight on top of this just to hold it, so when we're down below trying to put everything on, it doesn't push it back up. So just make sure you push it down really firm. Then just slide the pipe up into our new drain assembly and hook it up to our drain pipe using our Fernco and give it a test. Okay, before I run upstairs and put in the compression gasket and the lock nut on top of it, why don't you go ahead and take your finger and lock down that like button down below. So if you like what I'm putting out there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'd really appreciate the support you give me when you do that. And then I'm going to go upstairs and we'll show you how to put in that compression gasket. You can see how much of the plumber's putty oozed out when we tightened it down. So all you need to do is just go around, remove the excess plumber's putty. All right, so we just take our compression gasket, we're going to slip it over the pipe. Sometimes this could be the difficult part, depending on how tight it is. And you can move it along a little bit. Like I said, we're just going to set it just below the top. So you want to make sure the pipe is thick enough it's level. You don't want it up too high on one side, and I'll show you why in a minute. So you want to make sure it's level, and you won't want it up too high. So what I had to do down below is I loosened the Fernco fitting and the retaining strap a little bit. That way I can kind of move the pipe around a little bit to get it nice and level, and I can push it up and down a little bit as I need it. So now that we got it level, got our washer over there, we can put our lock nut on there, kind of go backwards until you get the threads. Now as you go down, you need to make sure that the top of the pipe stays at the, let me get this, at the bottom, not at the top of these things, at the bottom. Because when we put this on, it needs to bridge across there, so it needs to go into those grooves, and if your pipe's sticking up, you can't do that. Okay, so put it in there, and then just start tightening it down. And this is where having your pipe a little loose underneath will help push the pipe down with it as you tighten it. So until it gets to a point where it's pretty tight. Just make sure you don't drop this down into the drain. If you need a little bit more leverage, you can put a pair of channel locks on there and use that to turn it with. Just want to make sure it's nice and snug. Once again, you don't need to go medieval on it. And then, like I said, make sure you don't drop that tool down there. Clean off any excess plumber's putty we got floating around in here. And we're done, pretty much. So we can put the strainer cap back on. So we're just gonna clean up our tools, clean up our pan. We'll go ahead and run the water. We'll go down below and just make sure it's not leaking. We're solid, we're sealed. It's been running for a few minutes and we got no dripping. And we cleaned up our shower pan, put our strainer on, and it's looking nice. And then down below, we threw some insulation up in the attic area and patched up the drywall in the ceiling and called it a job well done. So as you can see, it's pretty simple to do. All it takes is a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, a little bit of help, and you too can do it the Woggers way. So once again, if you like what I'm putting out there, go ahead, hit that like button down below. Appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. And we got more content coming out all the time. It all depends on the jobs we got coming up, but hopefully I can get you at least one a week. All right, this is Brian with the Woggers Way saying see you in the next video.